This is the beginning, I think, of a political revolution in this country. And you know what? I can't think of anyone I would love to spend this moment with anymore, other than maybe Nigel himself, than my former brilliant, exceptional, wonderful colleague and a really great friend of mine, another former advisor to Nigel Farage, Gawain Towler.
Good afternoon.
Oh, the times we had. Doesn't it feel, look, I'm not a partisan broadcaster, I'm not related to Reform UK anymore, but people know my heritage, and Gawain and I both worked in UKIP at the same time. Gawain did many more years than me. He's a proper vet. It shows. He's a proper vet. But I remember those feelings of euphoria in the UKIP days when we had the defections and we danced up and down the aisles at conference, and you rolled the clock forward.
I think last night did something to those of us with long memories within what I call the tribe.
The OGs.
But basically people who have worked or voted for or campaigned for or stood for parties led by Nigel Farage over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
There is still something that hurt. And that's what happened on the night that Carswell was elected in Clacton. John Bickley was not elected in Hayward and Middleton, and he missed it by 300 votes. Tonight, last night, we slayed that dragon.
Yeah.
We beat Labour in a by-election. We'd never done that before. The tribe had not done that before. But we took out a Labour seat. If you think of the seats we won at the general election, they were all Tory seats. We've now finally taken a Labour seat. And if we had won in Hayward and Middleton back in the day, Ed Miliband would never have given us the headstone.
Oh.
He would have busted flush. And he'd have had to go then.
Yeah.
Now the question is, the pressure on Starmer will be colossal. We hear.
You reckon? Because I think that they're just sort of going, well, you know.
We hear that there's going to be a reshuffle. Now,
oh, really?
There's quite a lot of gossip about that in Whitehall, and one of the things I think, one of the targets for that has got to be Ed Miliband again.
Net zero.
Net zero. Now later this afternoon, the Metropolitan Council that is Doncaster will be counting, and the moment of is now day, it should be night. Counts should take place on the night. I
know, right? I don't know what hour of the day it is. It's always like that on an election night. You're sort of like zombie around for the next 24 hours.
Reform could well take a plurality of the wards in Doncaster North, and that would be a serious message.
Oh, right,
you've got Gary Smith of the GMB saying net zero is killing jobs. It is destroying us. And when the GMB, one of the big union paymasters, is saying, oi, stop it, and the only party that is absolutely solid on this is Reform, the Tories are starting to go, ooh, maybe we made an absolute hash of the last 14 years.
Here's a question for you, OK? Because I put this to James Price, because he's been sort of, you know, nuts and bolts of politics, the Conservative Party, for a while. And one of the big questions of Reform when they start, I say when, because I think it's going to be when, not an if, taking control of councils.
Well, tonight we'll take control of at least one.
So, and we know that what people are expecting from Reform voters, that those two big issues, the boat people, the asylum claimants, the irregular migrants, the breaker-inners.
Can do about that.
Right, so this is what I was going to ask you, Greg. This is what I was going to ask. So hold your tongue and let me just put this to you, because it's what I put to James Price, and I said exactly that. There ain't much councils can do if they get the call from, you know, Home Office saying, right, there's a coach of 1,000 migrants coming your way, you've got to house them. What can they do?
I hear 10-pole tutor in my head.
Because if I, you know, and James said the same, if I was a Labour government, I'd be going, right, time to distribute these people out of the hotels. Where has Reform been successful? Put that in your pipe and smoke it. It's going to be tough.
Do you want to guarantee not just a 6-vote majority in Runcorn? Do you want to guarantee a 6,000 majority in Runcorn? Because that's the way to do it. They've already 700 illegal migrants in Runcorn already. If you start piling more in, the people of Runcorn will know full well that their local council is not able to do much. They can possibly
block. Is that not where the ferry to Ireland goes from? One of the places? I don't know. I think it might be. I don't know. I was thinking
is that the ferry that crossed the Mersey? No, down the Mersey. No, it's a bit further up, Birkenhead or something. But the point is that if that sort of malice is carried out by the Labour government, they're in real trouble. Real trouble. If they start choosing Tory seats and Reform seats for their dumping ground, then they'll be in real trouble.
What can reform councillors do that's going to look and smell and palpably feel very reformy for the people who have just voted for them?
Well, what Farage has said and what Reform has said absolutely is they're going to do a forensic audit of every budget line in each council. Doging. And if they then rip out the diversity officers and the things that reduce productivity, if they demand that people stop working from home and increase productivity, you've got council officials working 3 jobs for 3 different councils. Stop that sort of thing. You've got all these people on wages greater than the Prime Minister. I mean, Keir must be really upset by that. But I
think he's got enough in the bank, for honestly.
Yeah. I thought Ali even nice clothes and all that.
You don't even need money in the bank when you've got friends like that.
But the point being is that we can go through that. We can look at the net zero boondoggles and the great virtue signalling waffly. Stop painting the council front door in rainbow colours. This sort of malarkey. So it won't be much in the cost. It'll save significant sums, but in the great scheme of things, with the statutory obligations for social care, for welfare that the government has put on councils, that's about 80% of their spending. You've only got so much discretionary spending. And people want, do they count?
But is there a risk that, what we find in government, what I've been told by people who have been very senior in government, is that you go with all these ideas and ideologies, and then the sort of the muscle of the mechanism, the blob, just gets in your way. If they start doging things, scrapping positions such as, the rainbow lanyard wearing loser, telling people they mustn't work from home,
I'm sure you look great with a bit of blue.
Oh, I'm never going to have one of those mental illness haircuts. But aren't they just going to be faced with a barrage of unions threatening strikes, court cases, all of the sorts of things, that sort of muscle of the blob?
At national government level, 100%.
At local level, though?
At local level, you'll get it.
Because a lot of councillors have gone into sort of near bankruptcy because they've been forced to sort of backdate gender pay.
We will fight these things on every beach that we can find. And I think if people are voting for reform, and if you look at the current map of Lincolnshire, the teal tide is spreading across the county, then they know what they're going to get. And they expect there to be a fight. They expect those councillors to have to fight because they've had it up to here. And they will give if the councillors, we are fighting, as long as they let people know what they're doing, as long as they show the opposition they're getting from the blob, that will just empower them, and they will have the support of the electorate to keep on plugging.
But we are going to have a lot of reform councillors who have never been councillors before. They're going to have the power, the might, the confidence, the experience, the ability to stand up to some of this stuff.
Well, this is something I query, and you may recall, UKIP did well in a European election, Brexit Party did well in a European election, all these things, and then OK, you've made your point now. Now go away, little people, little amateurs. You've got to go away and leave it to us professionals. And the professionals, with all their experience, are ruddy useless.
Yeah.
So maybe it is time for people with belief, with strong belief, the sheer amount of work put in by these people.
I remember.
Come in hard. They've got the support of the electorate. Come in hard. And not go, oh no, it's so hard. These nasty council officials and staffers, they won't do what we say. No, you do it.
I remember when UKIP ran some local councils, local wards, village, I can't remember what it was.
Ramsey in Cambridge.
It was Ramsey, and what was his name now?
Pete Reeve.
That's it, Peter Reeve, who used to be the first
parish
one
district
up,
and
first one up in the morning, rolling his sleeves up, cleaning the public loos.
He saved something like 40,000 a year by doing that.
Amazing.
Which, and on the parish council level, was a significant amount of money, and he did it himself. And he worked his socks off. So, with that sort of commitment to your local community, with that sort of sheer hard work, people recognise it. He was re-elected 3 times because they recognised that. At one point, he was up to 60% of the vote. Now, in a personal vote. Now, if we have councillors, and I think we do, if you look at the sheer grit and enthusiasm these guys have been showing up and down the country. I mean, there was a by-election in Wales, in Bridgend. We knocked it out of the park. There's one in Exeter, there's one in Essex. Everywhere you look, you're seeing breakthroughs. Hertfordshire, hardly a strong area for us, you'd imagine. But what you're seeing is sheer hard work, and if they continue to translate that hard work into their council duties, I think they will have the support of the public. And if they come across roadblocks of the sort of regional blob or county blob, not just the national blob, I think they will have the support of their electorate to keep on trucking and keep on pushing and demanding greater efficiencies and demanding better work. Because in the end, what's a council for? It doesn't serve the officials. It doesn't serve the officers. It doesn't serve the councillors. It's there for one thing only, and that is to serve the electorate.
Now, Starmer was asked, "Are you a coward?" after the Runcorn loss. And he replied, "The results are disappointing."
Well,
and I could stand here and say to you, opposition parties always do well in by-elections like this. It was very close in Runcorn, etc., etc. But what I want to say to you is my response is we get it. And we were elected in last year to bring about change. That's what people desperately want. We've started that work. NHS waiting lists are down. Wages are up more than prices. The message, I think, from these results is go further, go faster. He didn't even bother visiting Runcorn, did he? I get the impression there's something funny going on with the Labour Party.
He might have, naturally, would have probably won by 1,000.
But there's something funny going on with the Labour Party, because they're still regarding, as far as I can tell, still regarding reform as the Conservative Party's problem. Do you not think?
Oh, I think that's... Well, not all of them. Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff in Number 10, I think he gets it. He gets it far more. But the problem is the Labour Party is a party of public sector unions and university towns these days. That is its base. That is its core. The people of Runcorn aren't its base anymore. The people of Staffordshire, the people of Lichfield and Tamworth that voted for Labour. In Northumbria, we knocked Labour out of Blythe. That is its stronghold in Northumberland. They hold all 4 Westminster seats in Northumberland. The Tories did keep the larger number of their rural seats in Northumberland, but the old Labour areas, it's reform. And though we may be an existential threat to the Tories because something has to give, and it looks like the Tory party is...
Is it?
then we are certainly an electoral threat. And I think what we are, and you were suggesting at the beginning of the programme, I think what we're looking at is possibly, and we've been talking about it for a while, but possibly we really are looking at a fundamental realignment. It's like the poles of the earth are just about to flip. And that is extraordinary.
It does feel to me, look, we've been in this game for 20 years and we've seen the ups and the downs, the trials, the tribulations, but it does feel to me in my waters that today is very significant. This isn't a flash in the pan. Before today, Reform had a bit of a tough time from within its own quarters. Yep. We had Rupert Lowe Gate and everything attached to that, although I think, you know, Nigel might be thinking Rupert Lowe today because it doesn't seem to have impacted too much on the fantastic results that Reform are enjoying. They've also received a lot of, you know, pain and anguish from people who didn't get through vetting. Branch chairmen who were told, sorry, you haven't made the mark.
We have a mutual friend in Wiltshire.
We do, indeed. And it's something that I think you and I can sympathise with. The other argument is you're not being right-wing enough. You're not being a vanguard for the things that matter. The Overton window shifted. We want you to lead from the front. But the argument might be made that, so first of all, clearly the strategy has worked. But when it comes to the vetting, you and I both know the sort of attention, the sort of audit that happens to, well, I was going to say UKIP, Brexit Party reform, you know, all one, let's say, candidates and councillors that other parties just don't have. The level of scrutiny is intense. And Nigel's clearly turned around and said, I've got to do everything I can to protect us.
And in some cases, I think it has gone over the top, without a shadow of doubt. I do feel in certain cases, people have been vetted and you scratch your head and think, why? But the bottom line is that is what it is absolutely essential. And this is politics is war in a peaceful way. In any war, there are casualties. And in every war, there's blue-on-blue casualties. And I think in certain cases, it's just it's not nice.
Politics is a grim old game.
It's just politics. And much as, and I can think of one person who was, at 16, they and a mate, one is a Sunderland fan and one is a Newcastle fan, were rude to each other on social media, as you would expect from a Sunderland fan and a Newcastle fan. Scroll forward 14 years later, one of them is a professor at Durham University. He failed the vet because of what he said to his mates 14 years earlier.
I mean, this is the thing. Surely under those sorts of stringent measures, Nigel himself wouldn't pass the party's vetting.
Why do you think I haven't stood for many years?
Oh, well, you wouldn't pass any vetting.
Absolutely no chance I'd pass a vet. But Nigel is a known... everything that's ever going to come out about Nigel has come out about Nigel. And it doesn't seem to... I wouldn't say it's Teflon. It's a little bit scratchier than that. But he's gone through it. Let's
talk about Rupert Lowe, who, by all accounts, he might not have passed vetting based upon some of his sort of comments about mass deportations. But a lot of people out there backed him. A lot of people thought he was going down the right route. He was being brave and bold and leading from the front, some might say. And what happened in that big fallout was, frankly, very unedifying. I spoke to James McMurdoch earlier. And he still seemed to want there to be a reconciliation. I'd imagine Rupert waking up this morning looking at those reform results, and perhaps there's something in his bones that say, oof, I wish I hadn't done what I had done, and wouldn't it be good if I could be back in the fold, given how successful they're looking. Do you think there's any chance?
No. I'd like there to be, but no, I don't. Rupert has many talents, has many abilities, but he just isn't a team player. He just isn't. And his complaints about people... This is the position. How dare you? And what's more, I ignored them. I'm going to say what I want to say, whether I've been advised and whether the party says I shouldn't. No party can accept that. None.
But one could argue there might have been a moment that this could have been salvaged, and there was a sort of flicker of discontent, and the party just poured accelerant on it.
I am not going to defend how that happened, and I agree. I mean, there's a sort of wellness clinic in Reform. It's Boysdale's. A couple of bottles of claret, some fine steaks, and up with a cigar.
To listeners who don't understand why I cackle at that, the wellness clinic in the form of Boysdale. Boysdale is a Scottish restaurant owned by a sort of mad Brexiteer, Ranald MacDonald, which still has a cigar terrace and plays jazz and a whiskey bar, and it serves lots of steaks, and it's for a very long time been Nigel's favourite restaurant. He is very often spotted within the tartan folds of Boysdale.
But I mean, that is our wellness clinic, and that at the right time, possibly before Christmas, because this was bubbling, and this inability to take discipline. Now, maybe he should have been given a job. Devil makes.
Did they go to the wellness clinic together then?
I don't know.
I don't think they did. I think Nigel pulled down the shutters.
But there was this. Rupert was making comments like, "I wanted to see him. I've texted him many times. I want to see him." You've worked with Nigel. If you want to see Nigel, what do you do?
Just blimmin' go to his door.
And the door wasn't very far away.
Right.
And he never went to the office. The office is only 500 yards from Parliament. If he'd wanted to see... If it was mattered to him, I need to see you, Nigel, this isn't working, something's wrong, walk down the corridor, walk in the door. Nigel, I want to speak to you. You've done it, I've done it in my time. He doesn't slam the door in your face.
There's no point messaging the man who's got, more messages in his inbox.
There's about 20,000 people in the country that know his number, and they don't stop messaging him.
And also, actually, there's a man who actually knows about 20,000 numbers as well. Little known fact about Nigel Farage is he remembers everybody's phone number.
About, at least
it's kind of Forrest Gumpish. It's
2,000 to 3,000 in his head, just like that.
Yeah.
It is extraordinary.
Gawain, thank you so much for coming. Oh, it's just like having a good old day. It's like being back in the Mog. For listeners who don't know what that is, the Marquis of... Yeah, I'll be there. Marquis of Granby. So Gawain, it's a little factoid. When Gawain and I worked with UKIP, we had offices in what were the former Conservative Party headquarters, which the EU had taken over on Smith Square in London to be their offices. And because UKIP had MEPs, UKIP was granted an office within this building. Except, of course, Gawain and I were working on domestic politics. We weren't allowed to misappropriate EU funds a la Marine Le Pen. And so what we did is we would put our coats every day into the office, walk out, take our laptops and go sit in the pub nearby, the Marquis of Granby, known as the Mog. And even to this day, we have a little reunion on a monthly basis at the Mog. I haven't attended for a while, actually.
We do.
But much to celebrate there, I would imagine, on the coming Tuesday.
A little brass plaque on the wall outside saying Brexit was done here.
It surely was. Gawain Towler, former advisor to Nigel Farage, thank you ever so much.